You ever meet someone and instantly feel like, yep, we are going to have a real conversation here? Well, that's what happened with my guest today, Jem Fuller. He has lived a wildly non traditional life, from a tattoo artist to a leadership coach. And what he shares about communication and culture and personal growth is both grounding and expansive at the same time. This one is full of gems. So let's get into it. Hey there. Welcome to Be Unmessable with the podcast. I'm your host, Josselyne Herman-Saccio. And today I have a special guest. His name is Jem Fuller. I always say I have a special guest, but I feel like all my guests are special. Otherwise, why would I even have them on, right? But Jem is amazing. He was introduced to me by a good friend of mine, Jennifer Hill, who is like the queen of connection. And he's lived a very colorful global life, from a barefoot backpacker to a corporate leader. And he was a fire dancer and a tattooist and a kindergarten teacher and a motorcycle courier and a masseuse. I wish he was in person, reflexologist, and a travel consultant. So, like, a really well lived life. And he's a young man. And for more than 12 years, he's had his own executive leadership coaching practice and international retreat company in Bali and the Himalayas and Australia. He's a father, he's a dedicated partner, and he is the author of an award winning book called The Art of Conscious Communication. He's also got a TEDx talk, and he's a remarkable guy. I just love speaking to him, and I'm so happy that he said yes to being on the show. So let's welcome Jem.
Hey, Jocelyn, I'm so happy you invited me on the show. So that's going both ways. It's funny, I look at my calendar at the start of the week, obviously, and look what's coming in the week. And I saw that we had our thing booked. And I did a little happy dance on the inside.
I know I have a happy chair dance now. I spend more time in this chair, but
Yeah.
it's still a happy dance. So it's good to see you again. And, obviously through your intro, when I introduced you, you've done a lot of things. So you have been through quite a journey, and it's not a straight path. It's been zigs and zags and, kind of a world that you've created during your short lifetime. I say short lifetime.
Thank you.
Tell us a little, yes, tell us a little bit about that journey and how you ended up here doing what you're doing
Yeah.
now.
Yeah, sure. It's interesting. Well, not for everybody, I'm presuming, but for some of us who, as the years go by, we spend, a certain amount of time introspectively and, contemplatively trying to understand self and place within the world and purpose and meaning, all those big questions that we ask. And the older you get, hopefully, a little bit wiser. And with the benefit of hindsight and looking back and thinking, why did I follow, the path less trodden? And when I was younger, it was more of a reactionary. I mean, and if you want to go into the deep psychology of it, was me reacting against my father, but it was a reactionary, anti-establishment. I am not walking that trodden path. I am not going to be another, cog in the wheel of society. And I just really didn't want to be that. So I ended up becoming very alternative and really going about life in weird and wonderful ways. And now that I'm older and, running my own consultancy, and we've got older kids now, our kids are 20 and 18 and 17 and 15 in a beautiful blended family, and, having to put a roof over the head of a family and, make things work to a certain degree. I still notice that I really want to make my own way of doing things, And someone will say,
It's
Jem,
a
if you just do
brain
it like this, it'll
pattern.
be fine. Yeah. I'm like, yeah, I know that's the way everyone else does it, but I'm sure I can find another way, So it's interesting.
And when you work with your clients, does that come into play? Part of your effectiveness, I would assert, and you tell me if I'm wrong, is being able to find alternative pathways.
100%.
Yeah.
Even just yesterday was, a friend of mine who was a client in the past, and we've become friends, and he said, Jem, can I please have just a little bit of time with you on the phone? And we got on the phone, and he said, Jem, I just want to run this by you. I've got option A or I've got option B. And he really thought that it was just option A or B. And I listened and, I said, perhaps there's an option C. I'm thinking actually there's a D, E, and F, but let's just start with option
Yeah.
C. And yeah, so the short answer to your question is yes, I help clients think about things in ways they'd never thought about it before.
Yeah, and I'm sure that the varied background that you have, I mean, couldn't think of too many things more opposite, tattooist and kindergarten teacher. I mean, not exactly
Yeah.
like you see those two together. I can't imagine you tattooing the 5-year-olds, but at the same time, although, that could be a whole new thing.
Yeah.
Being able to have such a wide view allows you to see those options, C, D, and E, whereas most people have a very linear view of how to accomplish something or what's possible. So,
Mm,
your superpower, so to speak, could be
mm.
that wide array of potential lenses and views.
Yeah, that and also that interweaves into, something else that I am able to help people with, which is cross-cultural communication. And
Mm,
cultural, not just meaning ethnic culture, but workplace culture, whether it's the culture of a sales team and the culture of the finance department, helping them communicate more effectively and remember that they are all hopefully aiming for the same bigger mission of the organization. So that kind of stuff. And also, to sit in a room, I mean, I have, worked as a tattooist in around the world, traveling as a tattooist around the world, lived in very, very foreign cultures, not just visited as a tourist with a camera. I mean, immersed myself and lived there. And then also I've worked in the corporate world. So I've, run a large division of an international company and, had all of the zeros behind the numbers on the spreadsheets and 150 staff and all of that side of the world as well. So I understand the pressures of the corporate world. I understand the language that they speak with. But I also understand, the many other areas of life and people in many different walks of life. And so the ability to be able to bridge those differences is very helpful, really, really, really useful. And I think even more so now, ideologically, philosophically, but also it's becoming more and more immediately practical and needed, is that we have to be able to harness the power of diversity across a different range of thinking, different ways of seeing the world, and we need to be able to find ways to communicate across these divides of difference. I mean, it's just the polarization and the duality that's being created both through government and through the algorithms and through the divisiveness isn't serving humanity at all. And we need to start to open up the discourse and seek to understand each other a little bit better. And so that's what I'm passionate about.
Well, let's talk about culture a little bit. So when you talk about, not just ethnic culture, but departmental cultures within the same company, what is culture to you? Like if you had to distinguish, I don't want to say define, but more distinguish culture, what would you say about it?
It's the way we are together. It's the way we be together. And that then feeds into the language we use, the values, the shared understandings, the beliefs, the agreements that we make amongst ourselves. And if an organization, if a group of people don't consciously create the culture will accidentally form.
And create you
Right.
in many ways. Yeah,
In
because
many
you
ways.
end
We
up
are a
in
product of
full.
our environment in many, many ways. I use this example a lot, but, um, you imagine a child born in Sierra Leone, and at the age of 7, they witness their whole family being murdered and raped. And then they're given a gun and they are brought up in the environment and they become a child soldier and they end up as a 15-year-old killing people. I guarantee you, if that same child was born in your family or in my family and grew up in our culture, they would not end up as a 15-year-old child killer. So
Yeah.
we are very much a product of our environment. And as you said, the culture will, have a lot to do about how you are showing up.
And I think that's one of the things you said I want to point to about, the algorithms and the culture in terms of the default. It's not necessarily productive, or it isn't productive. It's anti-productive if you think about it counterintuitively. But what do you do to intervene in the prevailing culture, because it's not like a person creating that, it's multiple, like, agreement reality of, big corporations and, certain interests and governments and whatever it is, it's designed to produce the result that it's producing. So if you, going back to what you said about, if we don't actively design a culture, we're
Mm,
just in the default culture by the very
mm,
word default.
mm,
So what tools do you see as useful, or what do you work with your clients on in order to intervene in the existing default culture, whether it's in a company or in a family,
mm.
to be able to shift the tide, so to speak, and actually create a culture that's a win-win environment rather than a
Yeah,
win-lose environment?
yeah. Oh, Jocelyn, it's such a great and big question. It would be easy for
You have three
someone.
minutes. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm
Bullet
kidding.
point. Dot, dot, dot.
No, I'm just kidding.
It would look. It's such a massive movement. Not a good movement. Not a healthy movement. It's such a massive movement. This divisiveness, and it's both political, it's systemic, and it's algorithmic. To divide people and pit them against each other. And also the attention economy of the social media platforms, where really they're just vying for our attention. So the
Yes,
algorithms are instructed to try and keep us on that platform as long as possible. And they weren't told to be, mindful
socially
or
conscious. Yeah,
socially conscious
exactly.
about what they're putting in front of us. It's just like, get them to click, get them to comment, right? Anyway, so that's that. So it would be easy for someone to just feel overwhelmed with it and say, oh my God, the problem's too big. There's nothing we can do. I'm heading towards nihilism, right? I would understand people kind of throwing their hands in the air. The way I approach it is that for each of us as an individual, and this is more of a Buddhist approach, is that how can I choose to be, first of all? How can I choose to be? And that means that when I see something that is contrary to the way I think things should be, that I, rather than being reactionary and saying no, that I pause, breathe, and consider the alternative perspectives, right, as a personal practice. Then I bring that into my field of influence. So my wife, my children, my family, my friends. Right? For me as a coach, my clients, the workshops that speak, but for any individual, just into your sphere of community, that you just bring that open-mindedness into your sphere of community. If enough people do that, then hopefully we can tip the scales of humanity slightly in the right direction, and we can become more compassionate and more open-minded towards each other. And in terms of a tool, it's interesting. I'm putting together a workshop at the moment. I've been asked to fly over to LA and speak at a conference in March specifically on this. And this conference that I'm speaking at, the group of people, they're all members in the same organization. And recently, with the recent elections in the States, certain members in this group have been unable to communicate with each other anymore. They've cut each other off and said, I am not talking to you, because they voted for
Happens in
different political
family.
parties.
It literally happens in families every day
And
over
happens in
beliefs,
families
over
over beliefs.
political. Yeah.
And the reason, psychologically, the reason that this happens is because we identify with our beliefs. So our ego forms its sense of who it thinks it is. So very literally, who you think you are,
Yes.
part of that sense of identity is enmeshed in your beliefs, especially your deeply ideological or religious or spiritual beliefs are meshed into this sense of who I think I am, which is all an illusion, by the way, because
Yes,
we
it
weren't
is.
born with an ego.
Or
But we get
beliefs.
very, very, sorry.
Or beliefs. I mean, they get
Right.
constructed and change over time. There was a time you believed in Santa Claus, and,
That's right.
not to blow it for you, but let's
Yeah.
get real.
100%, right? But we go to war over
Yes.
defending our sense of identity, and we will form division over defending our sense of identity. So for me, the macro view of it, this is not how I do it, but what I'm helping people to do is to loosen their grip on how they think things should be, or what they think it should. Just relax your grip a little bit. You're actually not, there's no lion coming to eat you. You're not actually in a survival situation. It's just that someone has a different idea around some things. And if we start with what we've got in common first, let's sit down together. Let's start the conversation exploring what we have in common. Once we understand, wow, we've both got the same color blood. Wow, you need food and water and shelter. So do I. Oh my Lord, you love your children as much as I do. Wow, you grieve when a loved one dies. You grieve as well. You feel the same pain as me. Wow, we're actually the same. We're the same species. Let's start there. Once we get that rapport, then we can carefully explore the differences, with an open mind and some respect. Anyway, that's what I try and do.
Yeah, I mean, you're preaching to the choir, but I would say my question is, in your book, The Art of Conscious Communication, it sounds like those are very basic tenets of it, but tell us a little bit about how that works. Like, what is conscious communication as opposed to unconscious communication or automatic communication?
Yeah. So quite literally, the more conscious we are of something, the more aware of it we are. So the more conscious I am of, how I'm feeling in a moment, the more aware of it I am, or the more conscious I am of how I'm speaking, the more aware I am of, all of the bits that entail and make up communication. So just the more aware. And communication, the word, comes from the
Yes,
Latin noun communicatio, which means a sharing, not a telling. Communication is not telling someone something, it's a sharing. And the verb communicare, which means to make common. And that's the root of the word, right? Communication, common, community. And so successful or effective communication is when we come to an understanding. That doesn't mean we have to agree, but that we can understand each other. That's communication. And so the more conscious I am in the moment, then the more aware I am of when my ego is queuing up to speak and trying to get in and defend my point of view, or when my ego, the voice inside my head, when you're sharing with me and I'm in my head going, oh, yes, I agree with that bit, but no, I don't agree with that bit. And I'm going to tell her about this and da 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 da. Being aware of that is being more conscious, and also being more conscious of the other person or people. So if I'm more conscious of you, I'm more sensitive to where you might be at. What are you feeling? How are you responding? I'm aware of you. I'm conscious of you, and then conscious of the communication itself. So being aware of what is the higher purpose of this conversation right now. If it's not just about me and it's not just about you, what might it be about for the greater good? So this is conscious communication.
beautiful. I love it. And one question I do like to ask all my guests is, given this is called Be Unmessable With, and, being unmessable with doesn't mean being tough or not experiencing your experience. It's really about being able to stay grounded and centered in your vision and act from there versus those reactions and defaults and survival modes, right? So if you can look in your life at a situation that you dealt with that was really challenging, like to the point where it could have taken you out of the game or messed with you irreparably, but you were able to transcend it, what would be something that comes to mind?
Two things come to mind. One, when my youngest brother died, he was 30 and he died on his motorbike. So it was an instant, unexpected death. And it was 4 months after my father had died, and he died of a brain tumor at the reasonably young age of 65. My dad was 65, and then that we knew that was coming, so that was a lot less traumatic. But then when my little brother died, that was traumatic. That was completely knocked me for six. And obviously there's the natural grieving process, and everybody grieves differently, and it's a powerful thing. And one of the main things that helped me through that period of time was that I was a father and I had two little kids who were 5 and 3 years old, and they needed food.
Yeah,
I had to provide food,
that'll wake you up. Yep.
right? So as much as I just wanted to crawl under the blankets and just never come out, I had to. So there was survival necessity that helped get me through. But I think more pertinent to your question is what practices or,
Yeah, what
what
did you draw
practices.
upon,
Yeah, yeah. I created a sense of meaning. I just made up a meaning for it. And my brother was a bright, shining star and was beautifully affecting people all around the world. And I just had this feeling that he had passed a baton on to me and said, Jem, can you please carry on my light work? He didn't call it angel work. He just called it my light work, which meant just going around and making people's lives better. And I don't know whether this is literal and whether his energy somehow was communicating that to me. That's what it feels like, but I don't know whether that's actually true or not. But that doesn't matter.
Yeah.
What it meant for me was that I had a sense of purpose or meaning to carry on his baton. So having a sense of purpose or meaning to your life is a fundamental key to resilience. If you don't feel like there's any purpose to life, your resilience is kind of shot. So there was that bit. And then also the second example that came to mind was what people call a midlife crisis. For me was a midlife awakening when I lost my job, lost my marriage, lost my house, lost the whole kit and caboodle, except my 2 sons, thankfully. And again, what helped me get through that was developing an internal intrinsic resilience and access to equanimity where I wasn't reactionary to the world around me. My sense of resilience and purpose came from generating an internal sense of meaning and purpose and self-love, self-acceptance, self-worth. That was really the core of that. And then creating daily habitual practices, which I still practice to this day, to keep that foundation of resilience and self-love and equanimity moving through.
And if, as people are listening, what would be 1 or 2 daily practices they could take away and practice themselves that would set them on that path?
Mindfulness meditation, specifically mindfulness meditation as opposed to transcendental, which is also good, or all the different forms of meditation. Any meditation is better than none. But mindfulness meditation specifically is the practice of just simply observing with not attaching to anything or judging anything, just simply noticing what you can notice. I won't go down the rabbit hole of going into the depth of it. Just at the surface level, has been one of the most powerful practices for me to create as a habit now. So I sit for 20 minutes each morning and start my day like that. And the other one, funnily enough, is positive affirmations. And I used to think positive affirmations were woo-woo, hippie rubbish. I used to think,
I think I could relate to that interpretation. It's kind of
yeah.
like whatever,
I
but
used to
language
go,
creates reality. So
yeah. I used to think that. And I'm a convert. I've seen the light. But I've also read all the research and the understandings through fMRI and neuroplasticity, the understanding of neuroplasticity and how it works and forming new neural sequences, neural pathways, right? So I understand it now scientifically, which helps me a little bit, but also I've been living it and practicing it. And to be honest, the simple rewiring in my brain at the time of that midlife crisis / awakening, the simple rewiring in my brain from I'm not enough, which had me sabotaging all the success in my life up until that time. It had me attracting people into my life who would keep telling me I wasn't good enough. It had me experiencing life in a way where I just felt like I wasn't good enough. Me rewiring that to I am enough. I am good enough just the way I am. That rewiring process, which didn't happen overnight, it took a couple of years of high repetition, Josselyne, every single day out loud. I am enough. I am enough. I am enough. I'm good enough. And I didn't even believe it to begin with. I'm like, this affirmation stuff is rubbish. But I thought, no, I've got to do it. I have to try it because I was at the bottom of the bottom. And I rewired. So now my default belief in that space is, of course I'm enough. And my whole world changed. I attracted into my life the most beautiful woman I could ever meet who loves me just the way I am. She says to me, you're more than enough. You're amazing. Right. And that's
and
my
sometimes
reality.
you're too much, but that's a whole other conversation.
Yeah. She has. She said that. She has said that. But even my relationship with my kids and my family and my work and the work that I do and everything, my perception of everything changed,
Yeah.
which means in my reality, everything changed. And that was from affirmations. And so daily affirmations are a part of my life. So back to your question, if your listeners could take away two things, just a couple of minutes of mindfulness meditation and some positive affirmations can change your world, very literally.
Beautiful. I love it. And it really is, when you say high repetition, yeah, it's like any muscle. You need to
Yep.
do the reps. You're not going to get abs of steel if you don't do the sit-ups. And the sit-ups sometimes seem like, oh, this isn't working, and
Yeah.
the scale isn't responding, and blah blah
Yeah.
blah blah blah. But if you stick with it,
Yeah.
ultimately the results are there.
Yes.
Yeah, beautiful. So I know you were going to offer people, speaking of mindfulness, mindfulness made easy. So tell us about that, and we'll make sure we put it in the show notes so people can access it.
Yeah, sure. I created a very easy to get through introduction to mindfulness course because clients of mine were saying, oh, I can't meditate. I've got way too busy a brain and I just get distracted and it's just, it's not possible and I can't create the habit. And I thought, you know what, I want to create a resource for people to make it easy for them to kickstart them into it. And that course is for sale on my website. But for your listeners, I would love to offer it as a gift. So
Beautiful.
when they
Thank
go
you.
to the checkout, if you go to the, you'll see it in the course, in the show notes. But if you go to jemfuller.com and you go to the courses and go to the mindfulness course, when you get to checkout, in the coupon code box, just type in the word podcast, and it'll make it free and you can download it. And if you don't mind listening to my Aussie twang, then I'll guide you through some meditations.
Extra charming Aussie twang, It's
Oh.
like wonderful. Thank you so much for spending time with us. And is there anything you want to say just in closing?
No, other than just a little bit of a fan gush. When you and I got introduced, I didn't know who you were. You were just this lovely person who I met. And then after we met, I went and listened to tracks from back in the day and,
From
listened to
Boy Crazy. Oh, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. And listened to podcast episodes that you'd been on as a guest and, did a little bit of a listen and I went, oh, wow. Wow. Oh, that's exciting. I really like this person. And yeah, so I admire you and I love what you're doing in the world. And it's been a pleasure to meet you and an
Well,
honor to be on your show.
I love what you're doing in the world, and I think we have very kindred spirits and intentions for people. And I love that you're doing it the way you're doing it. Makes me happy. And for those of you listening, if you got value out of anything from this episode, please share it with someone that you think it would make a difference with, especially anybody that you think mindfulness occurs as difficult. Share this with them so that they can, begin on a pathway to something that is simple. It's not complex. It's simple. It requires practice, but it can completely alter the quality of your life. So thank you for tuning in, everybody. And please rate, review the episode, do whatever you're supposed to do with episodes, because that helps people be able to hear the episode. So do those things. Okay. See you on the next episode of Be Unmessable with the podcast. All right, what landed for you today? Drop it in the comments because I want to know what shifted or what got sparked for you. And if you're ready to build your own resilience muscle, I've got something for you. You can download my free guide to the 5 daily practices to being unmessable with. It's linked right below, and I designed it just for you. And if you want to keep going, the next video will take this even deeper. Watch it now.